the emergency broadcast. My name is Belzara, and I am the Chief Medical Administrator of Celestial Station Harmony, the largest medical facility in the Andromeda sector. For 200 cycles, I have overseen the treatment of 17 different species, managed countless medical emergencies, and prided myself on maintaining the highest standards of galactic healthcare. Nothing in my extensive experience prepared me for the day everything I knew about medicine became useless. The emergency alert came at 0400 station time. My communication device buzzed with the priority code reserved for catastrophic events. I jolted awake in my quarters, my forearms instinctively reaching for my medical scanner before my mind fully processed what was happening. Administrator Belzara, my assistant Kip's voice crackled through the speaker, his usual calm replaced by barely controlled panic. We have a situation in the residential district. Multiple casualties. Unknown pathogen. You need to come immediately. I was dressed and moving within seconds, my medical training overriding the fog of interrupted sleep. As I rushed through the station's corridors, I accessed the preliminary data on my wrist display. What I saw made my primary heart skip several beats. 17 patients in critical condition. Symptoms appearing within hours. Fever, respiratory failure, organ shutdown. Mortality rate climbing. No known pathogen match in our database. The quarantine zone. The medical bay had been transformed into a war zone. Medical personnel rushed between isolation chambers, their protective suits gleaming under the harsh emergency lighting. The air filtration systems worked overtime, creating a constant hum that vibrated through the floor plates. Dr. Thrain, my senior virologist, met me at the entrance. His scales had turned the pale blue color that indicated extreme stress in his species. Administrator, we have a crisis. This pathogen is unlike anything in our records. It spreads through airborne transmission, has a 2-hour incubation period, and a 70% mortality rate. 70%. The number hit me like a physical blow. What species are affected? All of them, Thrain replied, his voice hollow. Drynn, Telonians, Corsairs, even the Zelthari. The pathogen seems to adapt to each species' biology. It's impossibly aggressive. I moved to the first isolation chamber and looked through the transparent barrier. Inside, a Vrynn merchant named Kaltar lay unconscious, his breathing labored. Monitoring equipment showed his organs systematically failing. Outside the chamber, his mate pressed her hands against the barrier, her desperate clicking sounds of distress echoing through the corridor. How long does he have? I asked quietly. At current progression? 6 hours. Maybe less. Thrain pulled up holographic displays showing cellular breakdown at a microscopic level. The pathogen attacks the respiratory system first, then spreads to major organs. By the time symptoms appear, it's already too advanced for our conventional treatments to be effective. I moved through the quarantine zone, examining each patient. The story was the same everywhere. Healthy individuals who had been going about their daily lives suddenly struck down by this mysterious illness. Families gathered outside isolation chambers, watching their loved ones die behind transparent barriers while we stood helpless. What about our antiviral protocols? I demanded. Ineffective. The pathogen mutates too quickly. We've tried 17 different treatment combinations. Nothing works. Thrain's voice cracked slightly. Administrator, at this rate, we'll have 500 infected by tomorrow morning. 1,000 by the end of the week. The entire station could be gone within a month. The unlikely visitor. That's when she arrived. I was reviewing casualty projections with my senior staff, trying to find some solution in data that offered no hope, when the door to my office opened without announcement. The human who entered was young by their species standards, probably in her early 30s. She had brown skin, black hair pulled back in a practical bun, and wore a simple jumpsuit with patches from various civilian medical organizations. A worn medical bag hung from her shoulder, and she carried herself with the kind of calm confidence that only came from extensive field experience. Administrator Velzara, she asked in flawless galactic standard. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a human physician currently traveling through this sector. I heard about your outbreak and thought I might be able to help. I stared at her, my exhaustion making me process her words more slowly than normal. Dr. Chen, I appreciate the offer, but this is a crisis requiring advanced medical intervention. We have the best specialists in the sector working on this. And they're failing, she said bluntly, not unkindly. I saw the mortality reports posted on the station's emergency network. 70% and climbing. That means whatever you're trying isn't working. Thrain stepped forward, his scales flushing with indignation. Human medicine is centuries behind galactic standards. Your species still uses chemical compounds and primitive surgical techniques. This pathogen requires quantum-level medical intervention. Sarah's expression didn't change. And how's that quantum-level intervention working out for you? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, I held up a hand to forestall Thrain's angry response. Dr. Chen, what exactly are you proposing? Let me examine your patients. Let me review your data. And let me apply some techniques that your advanced medicine might have overlooked because they seem too simple to work. She shifted her medical bag. I've dealt with aggressive pathogens before. Sometimes the old ways work when the new ways don't. The primitive approach. Against my better judgment and the vocal protests of my entire staff, I granted Dr. Chen access to the quarantine zone. I told myself it was desperation. I told myself that we had nothing to lose since our patients were dying anyway. But truthfully, there was something in her eyes, a certainty, a knowing, that made me want to believe she could help. She spent 2 hours reviewing our data, asking questions that seemed oddly basic. What's the station's humidity level? What's the air circulation rate? When did you last change the filtration systems? What are the patients eating? What cleaning agents do you use? Thrain followed her around, growing increasingly frustrated. These questions are irrelevant. The pathogen operates at a cellular level. Environmental factors are inconsequential. Maybe, Sarah replied, not looking up from her scanner. Or maybe you're so focused on the microscopic that you've missed the obvious macroscopic patterns. She entered the first isolation chamber, and I tensed, ready to activate emergency containment if the human contracted the disease. She moved to Keltar's bedside with gentle efficiency, examining him with tools that looked ancient compared to our quantum scanners, a simple stethoscope, a manual blood pressure cuff, physical palpation of lymph nodes. His fever is extremely high, she observed, checking a basic thermometer. Your cooling protocols? Standard thermal regulation, I replied. We maintain optimal body temperature through our medical pods, which keeps the fever at a level where the pathogen can continue replicating efficiently, Sarah said thoughtfully. She pulled out a cloth from her bag and soaked it in water from a bottle. She placed it on Keltar's forehead. Thrain made a sound of disgust. A wet cloth? This is your advanced medical intervention? Sarah ignored him. Administrator, I need ice. Lots of it. And I need your environmental controls adjusted. Drop the temperature in these isolation chambers by 10 degrees. Increase humidity to 70%. And get me samples of every cleaning agent used in the residential district over the past week. This is absurd, Thrain protested. We're dealing with a plague, not a common cold. Actually, Sarah said, still working calmly, I think you're dealing with viral hemorrhagic syndrome complicated by opportunistic bacterial infections thriving in your overly sterile, temperature-controlled environment. The pathogen is nasty, yes, but you're creating ideal conditions for it to spread and mutate. The simple solution. She explained her theory while working. Human medicine, she told us, had learned through thousands of years of dealing with plagues that sometimes the environment mattered as much as the pathogen. Sometimes aggressive treatment made things worse. Sometimes the body needed support rather than intervention. Your quantum medicine attacks the pathogen directly, she explained, which is excellent in theory. But this particular organism mutates in response to direct assault. Every time you hit it with antivirals, it adapts. You're teaching it to be stronger. Then what do you suggest? I asked, fascinated despite myself. We support the patient's immune system and create an environment where the pathogen can't thrive. Lower temperatures slow viral replication. Higher humidity helps respiratory function. And I'm betting one of your cleaning agents is actually suppressing the patient's natural immune responses, making them more vulnerable. She took blood samples using manual syringes. I hadn't seen anyone draw blood by hand in decades, and ran them through a portable analyzer that looked like it belonged in a museum. After an hour of work, she identified the problem. There, she said, pointing to her display. You're using a cleaning compound called Sterilox 7 in the residential areas. It's extremely effective at killing bacteria and viruses on surfaces. It's also mildly toxic to most organic immune systems, suppressing natural resistance. You've been cleaning your station so thoroughly that you've left your population vulnerable to infection. The implications were staggering. Our advanced cleaning protocols, designed to prevent disease, had actually created the perfect conditions for this outbreak. The treatment protocol. Sarah worked through the night, implementing what she called supportive care protocol. It was embarrassingly simple. Lower temperatures to slow pathogen replication. Increased fluids to prevent dehydration. Natural compounds to boost immune response. Physical therapy to keep fluid from accumulating in lungs. And most importantly, stopping the use of Sterilox 7 and allowing patients' natural immune systems to function without chemical suppression. You're not curing them, Thrain observed, watching her work. His tone had lost its earlier hostility, replaced by cautious curiosity. No, Sarah agreed, adjusting in 4-drip, a technology we had abandoned centuries ago as primitive. I'm giving their bodies the conditions they need to cure themselves. Human medicine learned a long time ago that sometimes the best intervention is minimal intervention. I watched as she moved between patients, applying her simple treatments. Wet cloths on foreheads. Manual temperature monitoring. Physical assessment using nothing but her hands and basic tools. It looked absurdly primitive compared to our quantum medical pods and cellular regeneration chambers. But by dawn, Keltar's temperature had dropped 2 degrees. His breathing had stabilized. His organ function readings showed improvement. It's working, I whispered, staring at the monitors in disbelief. Sarah looked tired but satisfied. The human body, any organic body, really, is an amazing thing. It wants to survive. It has millions of years of evolution behind it creating defense mechanisms. Sometimes all we need to do is support those natural processes instead of trying to override them. By the end of the second day, every patient showed improvement. By the end of the week, the mortality rate had dropped from 70% to 12%. The outbreak was contained. The lesson. I found Sarah in the station's observation lounge as she prepared to leave. She stood looking out at the stars, her medical bag packed and ready. Dr. Chen, I said, approaching her. I owe you an apology. We dismissed human medicine as primitive. We assumed that newer and more advanced meant better. We were wrong. She turned to face me, smiling slightly. You weren't entirely wrong. Galactic medicine is amazing. Your quantum scanners, your cellular regeneration, your surgical techniques, they're centuries ahead of what we have on Earth. But Earth medicine evolved through necessity. We had to learn to work with limited resources. We had to understand the fundamentals because we didn't have advanced technology to rely on. You saved hundreds of lives using techniques we abandoned as obsolete, I said quietly. Sometimes the old ways work because they address the fundamentals, Sarah replied. Temperature, humidity, nutrition, rest, supporting natural healing, these aren't primitive concepts. They're foundational. All your advanced technology is built on these same principles. You just got so focused on the high-tech solutions that you forgot the basics. She picked up her bag. Also, human history is full of plagues. We've fought diseases for millennia. We've learned through trial and error, through catastrophic losses, through desperate innovation. That experience doesn't become useless just because you have better equipment. Sometimes experience is the most advanced technology there is. As she walked toward the docking bay, I realized something profound. The galaxy had judged humanity by their technology, finding it wanting. We had placed them in support roles, technical positions, areas where their lack of advanced knowledge wouldn't matter. But we had failed to recognize what they brought to the table: practical experience, adaptability, and the wisdom that came from surviving on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. The Council meeting. 3 weeks after Dr. Sarah Chen left Celestial Station Harmony, I found myself standing before the Galactic Medical Council, presenting a report that would challenge 400 cycles of established medical doctrine. The council chamber was intimidating, a massive circular room where representatives from 23 different species sat in judgment of medical policies affecting trillions of beings. Council leader Morpheus, a dignified Caesarian with scales that shimmered like oil on water, gestured for me to begin. Administrator Velzara, we have reviewed your preliminary report on the outbreak at Station Harmony. Your claims are extraordinary. Please elaborate. I activated the holographic display, showing before and after statistics. 3 weeks ago, we faced a pathogen with a 70% mortality rate. Our advanced medical interventions proved ineffective. The outbreak was contained not through quantum medicine or cellular regeneration, but through what we would classify as primitive human medical techniques. The murmuring that followed was predictable. Council member Threx, a four-armed VRYNN with a reputation for conservative views, voiced what many were thinking. You are suggesting that human medicine, which lacks quantum diagnostic capabilities, cellular manipulation technology, or advanced surgical procedures, somehow succeeded where our methods failed? Yes, Counselor. That is exactly what I'm suggesting. I pulled up footage of Dr. Chen working in the quarantine zone. A human physician named Dr. Sarah Chen identified the core problem that our scanners missed. She recognized that our advanced cleaning protocols were suppressing patients' immune systems, and our aggressive antiviral treatments were causing the pathogen to mutate more rapidly. Council member Zelnara, a crystalline being from the luminous cluster, pulsed with curious light patterns. What was her solution? Supportive care, I replied. She lowered environmental temperatures to slow viral replication. She increased humidity to support respiratory function. She used manual assessment techniques to identify complications our quantum scanners overlooked. She treated patients as complete biological systems rather than collections of cells to be manipulated at the quantum level. The demonstration. This is anecdotal evidence, Threx argued. One successful intervention does not invalidate 400 cycles of medical advancement. Which is why I brought additional data, I countered. I had been preparing for this objection. After the outbreak, I contacted human medical facilities across their territory. I requested information on their approaches to treating aggressive pathogens. What I found was remarkable. The display shifted to show comparative data. Humans have documented over 3,000 major disease outbreaks in their recorded history. They have developed comprehensive protocols for everything from bacterial infections to viral hemorrhagic fevers to parasitic infestations. Their medical knowledge is built on practical experience treating billions of patients over thousands of years. I showed images of human hospitals, field clinics, research facilities. They practice what they call evidence-based medicine, treatments proven effective through extensive trial and documentation rather than theoretical optimization. They understand disease progression in ways we've forgotten because our technology allows us to skip the learning process. Council leader Morpheus leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. You are suggesting we adopt human medical techniques? I'm suggesting we learn from them, I corrected. Integrate their practical knowledge with our advanced technology. Combine their experience-based approach with our quantum-level interventions. Create a hybrid system that addresses both the microscopic and macroscopic aspects of disease. The resistance. The debate that followed was heated. Conservative council members argued that adopting primitive human techniques would be a step backward. Progressive members countered that medicine should be judged by results, not sophistication. Threx was particularly vocal. If we admit that human medicine has merit, we undermine the entire foundation of galactic medical science. We have species that have been practicing advanced medicine for millennia. Are we to believe that a species barely capable of interstellar travel has discovered something we all missed? Before I could respond, an unexpected voice cut through the argument. Yes, Counselor Threx. That is exactly what we're saying. Everyone turned to see Dr. Sarah Chen entering the council chamber, accompanied by a delegation of human medical professionals. She wore formal attire rather than her usual practical jumpsuit, but her confident demeanor was unchanged. Dr. Chen, Morpheus said, surprise evident in his tone. This is an unexpected pleasure. How did you? Administrator Velzara invited me to attend this session, Sarah replied smoothly. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but I thought it might be helpful to address your concerns directly. She moved to the center of the chamber with the ease of someone accustomed to hostile audiences. Counselor Threx, you're absolutely right that your medical technology is far more advanced than ours. Your quantum scanners can detect cellular abnormalities we can't even measure. Your regeneration chambers can heal injuries that would be fatal to human patients. Your surgical techniques are centuries beyond our capabilities. Threx's posture relaxed slightly, clearly satisfied by this acknowledgement. However, Sarah continued, advanced technology is only as good as the understanding behind it. You've become so dependent on your equipment that you've lost touch with fundamental medical principles. You scan at the quantum level but miss patterns visible to the naked eye. You target pathogens with precision but forget that the patient is a complete biological system. She activated a portable holographic projector, displaying a complex medical case. This is a patient I treated 5 years ago on Earth. A 45-year-old human male with a mysterious systemic illness. He had been to 12 specialists, undergone every advanced scan available, received treatments based on cutting-edge research. Nothing worked. He continued to deteriorate. The hologram showed deteriorating health markers. His final physician was an elderly doctor who used what you would call primitive techniques. Physical examination, detailed patient history, observation of symptoms over time. She diagnosed him with a vitamin B12 deficiency caused by an autoimmune condition affecting nutrient absorption. The solution was weekly vitamin injections costing almost nothing. He recovered completely. The challenge. Sarah looked around the council chamber. The point isn't that simple solutions are always better. The point is that sometimes complexity obscures the obvious. Human medicine evolved without the luxury of advanced technology. We had to learn to be observant, to recognize patterns, to understand how different body systems interact. That knowledge doesn't become obsolete when you develop better tools. It becomes the foundation that makes those tools effective. Council member Zelnara pulsed thoughtfully. Dr. Chen, you make a compelling argument. But how do we integrate such different medical philosophies? By recognizing that they're not actually different, Sarah replied. Galactic medicine and human medicine share the same goal, healing patients. You've specialized in technological sophistication. We've specialized in practical application. Together, we could create something more effective than either approach alone. She pulled up a proposal document. I'm suggesting a joint medical training program. Human physicians would learn to use your advanced diagnostic and treatment technologies. Your medical professionals would learn our observational techniques, our understanding of disease progression, our protocols for working with limited resources. We cross-train, share knowledge, and develop integrated treatment approaches. You want us to send our medical professionals to study on Earth? Threx asked skeptically. And we'd send ours to study at your facilities, Sarah confirmed. Exchange programs, joint research initiatives, collaborative treatment protocols. We both have knowledge the other lacks. Why not share it? The proof. This is highly irregular, Morpheus said slowly. The Council would need evidence that such integration would produce measurable benefits. Then let me provide that evidence, Sarah replied. She pulled up a new holographic display. After the outbreak at Station Harmony, Administrator Velzara and I collaborated on a pilot program. We took 5 cases that galactic medicine had classified as terminal, patients with less than a month to live, conditions considered untreatable with current technology. The display showed 5 patient profiles. We applied integrated treatment protocols combining galactic quantum medicine with human supportive care techniques. We used your advanced diagnostics to identify problems at the cellular level, then applied human knowledge of biological systems to address those problems through both technological intervention and environmental modification. She showed the results. 4 of the 5 patients are now in stable condition with normal life expectancy. The 5th patient didn't survive, but lived 3 months longer than predicted, with significantly improved quality of life. These results were achieved by combining our approaches rather than choosing one over the other. The council chamber fell silent. The data was undeniable. Morpheus studied the information carefully. These results are impressive, Dr. Chen. But they represent a small sample size. Which is why I'm proposing a larger trial, Sarah said. Establish medical exchange programs at 5 facilities across the galaxy. Run them for 1 standard cycle. Measure outcomes, gather data, assess effectiveness. If the integrated approach doesn't produce better results, we acknowledge that and move on. But if it works, Zelnara interrupted, her crystalline form pulsing with excitement, we could be looking at the most significant advancement in galactic medicine in centuries. The decision. The vote was closer than I expected. Conservative members remained skeptical, arguing that the medical establishment shouldn't be influenced by such a young species. Progressive members countered that results mattered more than tradition. In the end, the proposal passed by a narrow margin. The Galactic Medical Council authorized the creation of 5 joint medical integration facilities, locations where human and galactic medical practices would be combined, studied, and refined. Dr. Chen was appointed as the human liaison, working with a council of galactic medical experts to develop integrated training programs. As the council session ended, Threx approached Sarah. I expected hostility, but his expression had shifted to something more thoughtful. Dr. Chen, he said formally, I still have reservations about your approach. But I cannot deny the evidence. Perhaps there is wisdom in learning from those who have struggled without our advantages. Sarah smiled. Counselor, human history has taught us that necessity drives innovation. Earth is a dangerous place, diseases, hostile environments, limited resources. We had to become good at medicine because we didn't have the luxury of advanced technology to save us. That desperation created knowledge. And knowledge, regardless of where it comes from, has value. 6 cycles later. I stood in the observation deck of the newly established medical integration facility on Station Harmony, watching human and galactic medical students work side by side in the training laboratories below. The sight was remarkable, humans learning to operate quantum scanners while galactic species practiced physical examination techniques. Both groups sharing knowledge, asking questions, discovering that their different approaches complemented each other. Dr. Chin joined me at the observation window. Administrator, you look thoughtful. I'm reflecting on how much has changed in half a cycle, I replied. 6 months ago, I dismissed human medicine as primitive. Now I'm watching our best students learn techniques from human instructors. And human students learning from yours, Sarah added. That's the beauty of integration. Neither approach is superior, they're complementary. Your technology lets us see things we never could before. Our experience helps us understand what we're seeing. A young VRYNN student below was practicing taking manual blood pressure readings under the supervision of a human instructor. She looked frustrated, struggling with the unfamiliar equipment. But the human instructor was patient, demonstrating again, explaining the significance of what she was measuring. The resistance hasn't completely disappeared, I observed. There are still medical professionals who think this integration is unnecessary. There always will be, Sarah said pragmatically. Change is uncomfortable, especially in established fields like medicine. But the data doesn't lie. Integrated treatment protocols are showing better outcomes across multiple disease categories. As more evidence accumulates, the critics will have to acknowledge reality. She pulled up statistics on her data pad. Mortality rates for systemic infections are down 17% at facilities using integrated protocols. Recovery times for traumatic injuries are 23% faster. Patient satisfaction scores are up across all categories. The revelation. What surprises me most, I admitted, is how much we had forgotten. We became so focused on quantum-level interventions that we lost sight of the patient as a whole organism. Humans kept that perspective because they had no choice. Sarah nodded. It's easy to become disconnected when your technology is advanced enough. You can treat diseases without understanding them, fix problems without knowing why they occurred, extend life without considering quality of life. Human medicine stayed grounded because we had to understand the fundamentals to be effective. A human medical instructor below was demonstrating triage protocols, how to prioritize patients when resources are limited. The galactic students looked uncomfortable with the concept. In their experience, resources were always sufficient. But the human was explaining that understanding triage improves decision-making even in resource-rich environments because it forces you to think about relative importance. Your species has a saying, I said. Something about necessity being the mother of invention? Necessity is the mother of invention, Sarah confirmed. Humans became good at medicine because we had to. Earth throws diseases at us constantly. We evolved in an environment full of parasites, bacteria, viruses, all trying to use us as hosts. We developed immune systems in response, then developed medicine to supplement those immune systems. It's been an arms race for millennia. And now that experience benefits the entire galaxy, I said quietly. The future. A medical alert interrupted our conversation. A ship had docked with casualties from a mining accident. Multiple species, various injuries, complicated by exposure to exotic radiation. Sarah and I moved immediately, joining the response team heading to the emergency medical bay. What I saw there would have been impossible 6 months earlier, human and galactic medical professionals working together seamlessly. Quantum scanners identified injuries at the cellular level. Human physicians interpreted those findings through their understanding of trauma medicine. Galactic regeneration technology accelerated healing while human supportive care protocols managed pain and prevented complications. A young human doctor named Marcus was working on a Caesarean patient with radiation burns. He used quantum diagnostics to map the damage, then applied a traditional human treatment protocol involving specialized bandages and topical medications that supported the patient's natural healing process while galactic technology repaired cellular damage. The bandages reduce inflammation and prevent infection, he explained to a curious VRYNN medical student. The quantum regeneration handles the cellular repair, but the body still needs support at the tissue level. We're working with the patient's biology, not just fixing individual cells. I watched as the team saved all 5 patients, using techniques that combined the best of both medical traditions. What would have been a tragic loss of life 6 months ago became a successful rescue because we had learned to integrate our knowledge. As the last patient was stabilized and moved to recovery, Sarah turned to me with a tired smile. Not bad for primitive medicine, right? I clicked my mandibles in amusement. I had learned this was equivalent to human laughter. Dr. Chen, I will never use that term again. What you practice isn't primitive. It's fundamental. And we needed to be reminded of those fundamentals. The legacy. The Joint Medical Integration Program expanded rapidly over the following cycles. What began as 5 experimental facilities became a galaxy-wide initiative. Human physicians brought their practical knowledge to every corner of explored space, while galactic medical professionals gained new appreciation for the foundations of their craft. The mortality rates for previously untreatable diseases dropped significantly. Medical response times improved. Patient outcomes across all categories showed measurable enhancement. The integration wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had operated under the assumption that newer and more advanced always meant better. Humans taught us that sometimes the oldest knowledge is the most valuable, that experience gained through struggle has merit, that technology should enhance understanding rather than replace it. 3 cycles after the outbreak at Station Harmony, I attended Dr. Chen's appointment as the Galactic Medical Council's first human medical advisor. It was a position that didn't exist before, created specifically because the Council recognized the value of human medical knowledge. In her acceptance speech, she said something that captured the essence of what we had all learned. Medicine isn't about technology. It's not about having the most advanced equipment or the newest treatments. Medicine is about understanding life, respecting biological systems, and working with nature rather than against it. Humans learned that lesson the hard way, through centuries of trial and error. But we learned it well. And now, together with our galactic colleagues, we're creating medicine that honors both tradition and innovation, experience and advancement, the old and the new. As I watched her speak, I reflected on how far we had come from that desperate night when a young human physician walked into my office and offered to help with techniques I considered obsolete. She had saved hundreds of lives. She had changed galactic medicine forever. And she had taught us all that sometimes, the most advanced solution is to remember the basics. The galaxy had called human medicine primitive. They had been wrong. It wasn't primitive, it was proven. And in the end, that made all the difference. The end.